All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 306 Fantasy Football Podcast. We're here recording on our typical Tuesday night for our Wednesday, November 30th episode number 70. And we are preparing for week number 13. For some leagues, I know in like some of the bigger leagues like the Fish Bowl, etc., this is the last week. Our European league that Zach and I are in, this is our last week, regular season. But for most of us out there, week 13, week 14 are the last couple weeks. Then we get playoffs going on week 15. But the fantasy season is coming and going as quick as you can imagine here. And we're going to be preparing you for week number 13 and for this last couple of bit of a grind to get you to the fantasy playoffs. So before we get there, we'll say hello to the fellas before we get started, and then we'll get into our 22 fresh quick question of the week. So we'll kick things off here with Zach. And I know last week it was just the two-man show here with myself and Zach, and then we'll see what Armand's been up to the last little bit to keep busy. But Zach, how's it going?
Oh, it's been going good. Suffered a string of heartbreaks over the weekend. I was telling you guys about that on Sunday, I think. But new week, and hopefully we can avoid the same heartbreaks this weekend.
Yeah, I was pretty comical in the group chat. They were going off, and Zach had a tough fantasy week, tough football week, tough little bit of everything. And then Armand goes, "Well, the only thing we shared that was tough was the Husky loss, but everything else has been good for me." Armand goes just to twist that knife into Zach's back a little more. But yeah, it was a tough one. Well, I know all three of us are watching that Huskies game. That was a tough one there. But Armand, a couple of weeks here had a nice little bye week for you as well too. So what's been keeping you busy?
Oh, basketball tryouts at the school have been rough and tough, It's always tough going through those tryout weeks and trying to figure out who you want to keep, who you want to let go. And it's tough. It's hard decisions, and kids come out and you gotta appreciate their willingness to at least try out even.
Yeah, absolutely. We had practice. Well, elementary's a little different. We didn't really have tryouts per se. We had open gym, practices and come try it out, I guess, kind of thing. But that season is upon us now, and it's been a lot of fun. We had all practices last week, and then now I had practice today as well too. It's been a lot of fun. But now we were just chatting before recording here. I had my last weekend of classes. So I finish another set of classes, and then I have until after the Christmas break. So nice weight lifted off the shoulders there, and get a little more free time and less school related focus and something that's a little bit more fun. So like kind of like fantasy football. We're getting into playoffs time here pretty quick, and it's one of the things is you get those players that carry you all the way into not only into the fantasy playoffs and hopefully to a fantasy championship. So the question for the week here for 22 fresh quick question of week number 13 is, who has been a player that has been carrying the load most in your league? So maybe it's somebody that's been just astronomically good in a few leagues. Maybe it's somebody that's been very good in quite a few leagues. And we'll get to Armand kickstarted here because this was one that could have been pretty sketchy, I think, with this addition to your roster. And it looks like you've had in quite a few leagues. So maybe we'll get you to start.
All right. Kenneth Walker the third has been a guy that's been carrying the load in most of my leagues. I own him in 4 of my leagues, and only one of those being dynasty, so they're S3 drafts. So picked him up early or drafted him early and made sure I got him. The only one I didn't get him in was the staff league, I think, out of my redrafts. And he's been a stud since he moved in and took the starting role. It hasn't really been that he's been putting up huge points. It's just made up for injury woes that I've had and underperforming RBs that I've also had. He's put up some pretty good performances, but he's been a steady Eddie too that I can rely on and just plug into my lineup and not have to worry too much about.
He's been one of those unicorns with the high ceiling and high floor. You don't get those too often. You get low ceiling, high floor, or whatever. And now it's just no. He's just got a solid baseline, and then he's got, like you said, he's got those boom games too. So he's been somebody that I actually have 0 shares of, so I haven't got to experience this other than maybe betting on him or the DFS lineups. But it's been a treat to watch him because he's just a talented football player all around.
Yeah, you know why you don't own him? Because I was drafting him in all the leagues you're in with me, Jordan.
Yeah, we're in quite a few together, and I knew I wasn't getting them. That's for sure. Zach, what about yourself here? Who's somebody that that's you've got quite a few shares of that's been carrying the load?
Yeah, so I got 3 shares of Jaylen Waddle. That's between a couple redraft and 1 dynasty, and then I have him in a number of best ball leagues that I drafted over the summer. And he's doing nothing short of God's work this season. Pardon me. He is fantasy receiver number 6 in half-point leagues. He's tied for 5th in the league in touchdowns. I believe he's tied for 5th in receiving yards as well. And he's number 4 in receptions of 20 plus yards or more. Simply put, this is a ascending talent that is his team's wide receiver too. If the day ever comes where Tyreek Hill has to miss a game, I can only imagine that Waddle will be to the moon.
He was a guy that, man, you were pumping his tires lots in the offseason, and we weren't doubting the talent, but we had a really good discussion. Is it gonna be Waddle? Is it gonna be Hill? I don't think two is good enough to support both. And man, that was a pleasant little surprise because we had this discussion. I think we had it before my wedding, we had it during my wedding, we had it after my wedding. Is it Hill or is it Waddle? Like, so I think we talked about that Hill trade right around that same time. And man, what a surprise that's been. And I even got 2 of him in a couple of my lineups. I put him in my lineup this last week, which sucked because they absolutely ruined Houston so fast that Tua didn't see the field in the entire second half. But yeah, that Waddle, he's been dynamic and he's been unreal. And I think about it, Zach. I think about the funny story, and maybe we won't tell it today. Maybe we'll save it for the off season. The story about how you ended up with Waddle on your dynasty roster. I can't remember if we've told that story on the pod before, but I was thinking, I was like, man, how did Zach get him? Like, thinking about, I ended up getting Smith, and then he got Waddle right after. And I was like, how did he? And then I remembered how that whole story went down. Oh, it's just comical.
Yeah, I was sweating that one out at the bank, trying to renew my mortgage and just sitting there on the phone waiting, not even listening to the poor guy, trying to explain the different rates.
Yeah, Zach locked in for at 2.2. He's like, yeah, shut up. I got to make a big pick here.
Yeah.
My guy I picked, and I've talked about him lots this season. It was weird to me because in the one league, we were trying to trade him away in a dynasty league where we were kind of like ho-hum, I guess. And nobody wanted to buy him. And I just found it so bizarre. And I guess, yeah, he is old. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, maybe people are a little bit too concerned. But if you're going for a championship, what better player to have on your team than Travis Kelce? I have him in several leagues, and he is not only a positional advantage, but in just the regular like one quarterback league where the Q is not as important. Travis Kelce is the number 1 player. Even in super flex leagues, Travis Kelce is a top 12. So where those quarterbacks are a little bit more important, he's still a top 12 back. And then you have the tight end premium leagues. Like I know in one tight end premium league, I think he's number 5. In another tight end premium league, I think he's number 1. So he is one of the most advantaged, like depends obviously your tight end premium rules, but he's one of the most he's obviously a Hall of Fame tight end. People are a bit concerned about him with possibly seeing double teams because of the loss of Tyreek Hill. He's another year older. What's this offense going to look like? And last year he must have been taking receipts because he did not finish as tight end 1 after I think it was 8 seasons in a row, if I remember correctly. And now he's taken that one back over by storm, and he's going to take that crown once again. So he's a guy that I've had on my roster, and it's just when you need him most, he puts up big weeks. And especially when you look at your opponents, who they're plugging in at the tight end position. There's some weeks I've seen guys Taysom Hill when he has the bad weeks, or tight ends putting up goose eggs, and then there's Travis Kelce in your lineup with 28 points, and that's just 28 points that your opponent just can't possibly score, which is it's been awesome to have. So hopefully he can keep carrying the load into the playoff season, because I know his playoff schedule is real juicy. So hopefully help me win in a couple of championships again this year.
Yeah, that positional advantage is huge, Jordan. The guy in staff league right now who owns him is sitting pretty right now, and that positional advantage has been huge all year. It's a PPR league, and wow, you can't speak higher of it. Like it's a 14 team league. He drafted Kelce in the first round, and he was worried that he maybe made a bit of a reach, and it was kind of like, no, like we need tight end. You need a tight end in this league to actually have success, because how deep this league is and how few tight ends there are.
Well, yeah, like here's the list of them in front of him. Patrick Mahomes, okay, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and then Josh Jacobs, which we'll talk about him a little bit later. Austin Eckler, Joe Burrow, Stephon Diggs, Lamar Jackson, Justin Jefferson, Derrick Henry, Travis Kelce. So that are non-quarterbacks, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players in front of him. So he's the number 6 player overall, and that's at a tight end position. And there's some players that in front of him that haven't had their bye week yet. So when you like consider that in there, like he's a unicorn. And I don't know if there ever will be another Travis Kelce, but he's a treat to have on your roster for especially in Dynasty, if you've had him for X amount of years. He's just been carrying your roster for who knows how long. So continuing on here, we'll get into some insiders and headliners, and then we'll get into a little bit of the weekly recap.
I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. I'm Ron Burgundy.
So I think it was 2 episodes ago, we joked about, oh, what happens if OBJ signs with the Rams, because the Rams need him real bad. And the Rams do need him really bad, like super, super bad. But the Rams are also like the season's over for them, I think. Matthew Stafford still in whatever. I know it's not concussion protocol, but head and neck injury. There's a chance that he could be shut down for the season. They've got several defensive players that could be shelved for the foreseeable future. And then now Allen Robinson is going to miss the remainder of the season with a foot injury. This is just an awesome situation for the Detroit Lions. Like, they could make the playoffs and still get a top 5 pick, which is like the exact opposite of what I expected this season. Especially if they would have beat Buffalo. It was fun to watch, but it hurts the soul the way that game finished. But Allen Robinson's going to miss the season. So is Darnell Mooney, a wide receiver from the Chicago Bears, after he's going to be going under ankle surgery and has been officially already placed on IR. So his season is over. Elijah Mitchell, his season is as close to being over as one could be. He's got another knee injury, similar knee injury he had at the start of the year, and he's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks. That maybe adds some clarity for you if you're a Christian McCaffrey owner, but who knows what that clarity is going to look like, because it's been tough sledding for the both of them the last couple weeks here. Damian Harris, who plays this upcoming Thursday against Buffalo, is already quoted as expected not to play, as he's dealing with a thigh injury. So that's a piece of news here that maybe Zach's going to mention in the next segment. Najee Harris is also something to monitor. He left in the Monday Nighter with an abdominal injury. He left and did not return. So that's something that he's most likely not going to be playing on a short week here. So that's something to monitor if you're a Najee Harris owner. And finally, Melvin Gordon, a small piece of news here, signs to the Kansas City practice squad. Is there anything here, fellas? I mean, most was pretty clear cut. Some of them not even all that fantasy relating. I guess maybe auxiliary pieces. But anything there that you maybe want to dive into a little bit, or something that there's a little hint in there? I know, Zach, you'll talk about the Damian Harris maybe a little bit, but anything else to mention?
Well, with the Elijah Mitchell and then CMC banged up a little bit, do you guys think it's worth getting the next guy up from the 49ers, or do you guys think it's the CMC show moving forward no matter what?
Well, I don't know, Zach, maybe you share the same sentiment, but I think it's interesting to pick up, at least because this is a team that's geared for a playoff run. So I don't know if you want to bang CMC up all the way into the ground and then have him injured for playoffs. Obviously, you know for a fact you're not going to have Elijah Mitchell for at least the beginning of the playoffs, if not the entire stretch. So you could see maybe CMC's touches being monitored or reduced. Who knows? We don't know how bad the CMC bang up is here, but I think it's definitely worth an ad, especially if your waivers go through and nobody touches them for a $0 pickup. I think there's definitely worse pickups you can make. But is that a similar sentiment you share there, Zach, or what do you figure?
I'm actually a little bit different than you. I think it's been apparent all season that the Niners offense has been trying to reduce the amount of contact that Deebo Samuel has been taking to his body. especially on the ground. But I wonder now if, given the situation they're in, they start to give him the ball more now on the ground and almost revert back to what they were last year, when he was so effective both through the air and on the ground.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
actually, that's a good point. Like, you got Miami, that's a huge game for them this week. I'm just trying to look at who they got next week here. Like, you got a couple of key games for them, and like that division is very much up for grabs here with some like serious competition. So it's a pretty key wins and key games that these teams are going to have to take. And like Tampa Bay in week 14, like it's gonna be tough sledding for them. So I can see that being a definite. Like, it's not like they can mail it in and all of a sudden they're in playoffs, right? Like, you're gonna have to win these games. So I think that's a pretty good option there, Zach, that I never really considered.
I think I'm on the Zach train there. Like, I was surprised, like, even this last week with Mitchell going down and CMC going down, that they didn't start giving Debo some touches in the backfield this last week. But maybe they are just trying to save it, and they knew they had the win here. But yeah, moving forward, you got to think they're in win now mode. They can't lose these games, so you put it in your ball or your weapons hands, and maybe Debo starts getting a little bit more touches here, and just hope that he doesn't get injured like the other guys that have been getting touches have been.
Yeah, like week 15 they got Seattle. That could be even like that couldn't be a bigger game for them. Like, that very well could be the winner of that game wins the division for any stretch of the imagination, which is hard to believe we're still talking about Seattle winning the division. But it's yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. I still think like there's worse pickups you can make. Like, might throw a little $0 fab on there and be pleasantly surprised. But I wouldn't be surprised if it goes your guys' way with the Debo Samuel news. So, weekly recap going into the studs and duds. We're going to start with Zach because this guy has been nothing but spectacular. Maybe not through the air, but as continues on the ground for sure. So let's hear your stud of the week, Zach.
Yeah, so my stud this week was kind of the quarterback darling of the fantasy season, Jalen Hurts, who put up just shy of 30 points, 29.8. Like you alluded to there, Jordan, while he hasn't been doing it consistently or as consistently as one might expect through the air, this week he carried the load for the Eagles against the Packers to the tune of 157 yards on the ground. He did have a fumble and no touchdowns, but that still propelled him to a outstanding fantasy game for you here in week 12. This is somebody that if you got lucky like I did and were able to get him late in your drafts, he is somebody that has been paying off in a huge way, with only 2 games on the season under 20 fantasy points. Every other week it's been more than 20, and only once has he finished outside of top 12 QB, and that was QB 15. So he's been as dependable as anybody could hope for.
He could have been in the category of the 22 fresh quick question of the week, because he's a guy that I think, like, I don't know about you, Armand, because I know you were pretty heavily on the Broncos side there, with just how cheap Russ was getting there, and that stack you were really liking at draft season. But I know, Zach, we were talking about Hurts in quite a few leagues, and I think there was one league that we were even in. You snaked me on him about 2 picks before me, so that's something we could have both talked about, that having him in quite a few leagues, because he's been outstanding, like you mentioned. Armand, let's hear yours, because this one I've had him in Dynasty in my big money league for 5 years now, and finally we're starting to see some production. So let's hear it.
I gotta show some love to this guy because he was a guy that I drafted really late in staff league, and it was hardly any tight ends left on the board, and I picked up David Njoku, and I was really nervous about how it would go. And until he was injured, he was turning into a tight end one, and now he's back to it again. And that touchdown on Sunday kept my playoff hopes alive in my staff league at work there. So I got to show him love. It's not a huge stat line. I'm going to give you the PPR points because that sounds more impressive. But 13.9 points. Not huge, but it saved my season. So he's my stud of the week. Because both of us, the person I was playing, most of their guys were done after the early window. Most of my guys were done after the early window. We were neck and neck going into that last little bit of the Cleveland game there. And Njoku scored the touchdown, and it was good night after that. So, it made me so happy.
That's one of the best catches of the year so far. Like that's got to be top 5 catch of the season.
Yeah.
And like from a tight end, like okay, like you said, like Justin Jefferson, or you say like Cooper Kupp, or like some of these premier wide receivers makes that catch. It's like, yeah, I'd expect an unbelievable catch like that from him. But like when that play went live, I was watching, I was just like, holy crap, like what a catch. And then I was like, wait, that was David Njoku? Like that was an unbelievable catch on 4th down to win. Like, was it to win the game, or was it to go? I can't remember if it was win the game or go ahead or how it worked out. But like 4th down in the back of the end zone, one hand and get the feet down. Like that was a heck of a catch.
Yeah.
4th and 17 with 32 seconds left, and they were down by 7.
Like, and then like unbelievable.
Yeah.
And from a tight end.
Yeah. He's actually a pretty good tight end. It's just that system has never really used him that much, and he's always kind of had the injury bug. So it's been nice to finally see him being used this season. I'm a little worried with Deshaun Watson coming back, what's going to happen, but I'm hoping they keep using him. Deshaun Watson sees that he's got an athlete there at the tight end and targets him.
He, like in Houston, he targeted the tight end quite a bit. So there is hope, but I also hope that he throws 4 interceptions and gets benched in the second half of this upcoming week's football game. Just the, like a little like command, like what's a little like karma, or like
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in some of the league chats, like guys are talking about like how different leagues are handling it. I'm not in any leagues that have said you can't use Watson and you can't get him, but it sounds like there's leagues out there that are saying you can't pick him up. He's unavailable no matter what. That's quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, there was a pretty good discussion in our charity league, and I think there's one other league that was talking about it too, and they were sharing thoughts from their other leagues. I hope he sucks. I just hope he sucks. And the last time we seen him play football, he sucked. He sucked in that preseason game real bad. So I mean, there's hope. I just also like seeing chaos. Like I like seeing the fact that Denver owes Russell Wilson a ton of money, and he is one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL this season. So to see another guy with fully guaranteed money be absolutely brutal, it would be kind of funny. And
Jordan just wants to see the world burn.
Well, just somebody else to be in demise with their choice of NFL franchises, like I've been for so long. Oh man. I'm gonna go to my stud here. My stud is the number 1 running back of the season, which has been unbelievable. I actually think he's the number 1 non-quarterback so far as well too, which is hard to believe. And this, we've talked about him already the last couple episodes. It was from a guy that was a possible cut candidate, and team, the reports were that maybe they move on from him this season, et cetera, et cetera. And he's been nothing but spectacular. And that's Josh Jacobs. And I only have him in one league, and it's the European charity league. So it's not that, premier of a league or high investment type league. So it's not like I'm really doing circles here, but Josh Jacob, another huge week and a walk-off touchdown, 45.3 points, 33 carries for 229 yards and 2 scores. Also had 6 catches on 7 targets and 74 yards. This guy, which was unbelievable, leading into the game, he was put on a questionable, possible to play with a late addition to the injury report, and then plays, then ends up on the possible injury report towards the end of the game, says I'm going back out, and then runs like a 74-yard game sealing OT winner. It was a treat to watch him. He's been a guy that's had kind of an up and down career so far, but has bounced back huge this year, especially after not getting his 5th-year option utilized. So he's going to become a free agent this upcoming offseason. It's going to be interesting where he lands because he's a capable receiving back, and obviously look at the fantasy points he's put up this year. He's a very capable back too. So a name that I think is going to be talked about lots in the fantasy offseason is going to be Josh Jacobs, just as much as he's been talked about this fantasy season. So that's who I'm going to go with my stud of the week for week number 12. Zach, you want to talk about your dud?
Not really. This was a guy that I had to play in a few leagues out of necessity, whether it was buy, but more so, actually it wasn't because of buy, it was all because of injury, or just no other options. I had to play Curtis Samuel, and Curtis Samuel to this point has had a up and down season. It's either been a wide receiver 1 week or it's been like a wide receiver 3 type of season for him. And this week he went to like maybe wide receiver 7 territory when he put up 1.3 points. And the kicker here is he was targeted not 2 times, not 1 time, but 0 times, no targets. So my guy didn't even have a chance to make a play, but he did get the ball handed to him 4 times, and he was able to pick up 13 yards. So Washington wasn't doing him any favors, but he certainly wasn't doing my teams any favors either.
You know what? It's not Washington that's not doing him favors. It's Henneke not doing him any favors. It's ever since Wentz went down. He just doesn't really target him that much. He's just focused in on McLaurin and Samuel. Like you saw his targets drop from when he came in. Like he was averaging like probably 9 targets a game with Wentz, and now he's down to averaging like 3 targets a game with a Henneke. Am I saying that right?
Heineke.
Yeah. Heineke.
Kind of like the beer. Yeah. With Wentz, he had week 1, 11 targets, week 2, 9, week 3, 10. But yeah, you're right. Since then, he's kind of been around that 5-6 mark. And over the past, let's see here, past 5 weeks, it's been 4, 4, 4, 2, and 0 in the target column. So 3, 3, 2, 1, 0 in the reception column. And with that kind of production, unless you hit a home run and get a touchdown, you're probably not putting up too many points.
You started him in our important league there, Zach, and it might have costed you the bye week.
I think it did, but I mean, it was him or Darius Slayton, so damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, I don't think it mattered that much.
Yeah,
I think Slayton went yard though. I think he got a tutty.
Yeah, I think you actually might be right. Let me see here. Oh, let's check your roster. That's the quickest way, I think.
Yeah, I think he did though. I think we were watching it with the coaches at school.
Nope.
And I think he got a tug.
3 receptions on 6 targets and 63 yards for 7.8 points.
Still better.
Well, then maybe he got her. Maybe he got her close to the end zone then.
Yeah, but still,
really, I should have played Isaiah McKenzie. Christ, 19.3.
Yeah, he's been a little dark horse too. Like inconsistent by all stretch of the imaginations. But that for a guy that you literally went undrafted and waiver wire pick up week number 1, like he's been a nice little treat.
Yeah, really, what I should have done though is I should have played Mr. Big Hat himself, Brian Robinson. That's what I should have done.
Oh yeah,
he's like just about on fire here. These what was the NBA Jams rule? The three made shots in a row on fire. Well, it's one more guy here that's reverse on fire. Armand, do you want to talk about your dud?
Yeah, I went with another pass catcher from the Browns as my dud of the week, Donovan Peoples-Jones. He had become a guy that I think everyone has been starting in their leagues at wide receiver because he had been putting up points the last few weeks and had made himself a dependable guy. And Then this week he rewarded all those people with 2.6 points, 2 catches for 16 yards. I hope that's a blip. I really like DPP. And I hope that he bounces back here and continues to be that reliable guy that people have been depending on. But yeah, my dud of the week.
You got to be careful how you pronounce that nickname there. You really like the PP. Oh, that's real good. Mid-show, Zach just drops Jacoby Brissett there as we're talking about Cleveland so much here.
Yeah.
My dud of the week, I talked about a little bit earlier, and that's CMC. Since having Elijah Mitchell back, it's been kind of hit and miss. McCaffrey was not in the end zone 2 weeks ago, but still had a pretty decent fantasy week. But this week, 11 carries, 32 yards, 4 receptions, 17 yards for a total of 6.9 points. Christian McCaffrey, this sucks because he's a guy that you would want to carry the load for you in fantasy. But for me personally, I just made a big trade for him to try and go all out to make a push. And I lost this week to Armand. And I think it just actually eliminated me from playoff contention. So I sold my team and I'm going to miss the playoffs. So that's a double dagger. Thanks CMC. Thanks Cook. Thanks the rest of my team for crapping the bed. So that's the double dagger there. So CMC, I'm hoping there's a little bit of a get back here. We talked about this quite a bit in the insiders and headliners portion. I guess time will tell. There's important games to win. So whether that means McCaffrey's got to carry to get them there, or whether they're going to kind of ice them a little bit to make sure they have them for a playoff round, time will tell. But hopefully we can see Christian McCaffrey get back into a reliable, trusty start, because we got fantasy playoffs around the corner here, and we want that confidence when we're setting the lineups, especially in the playoffs time. So CMC is my dud of the week, and he has I don't think he's been in this category too many times in the history of this podcast, but it's one that burns a little bit for sure.
Hey, Jordan, I got good news for you. You're not mathematically eliminated yet.
No, I need somebody to go. There's 2 chances, but the one I need a team to go 0-2, and I need to go 2-0. And I think you need to lose 1 game in that. So it's a messy mess, but not mathematically, but you're saying there's a chance, basically.
Yeah.
Is what I got going on. Talking about saying there's a chance, there's a good chance that if you use this promo code that you're going to save yourself 15% off. And that's not a good chance. That's a guaranteed chance. Promo code 306FFB15 when you go to 22fresh.com, or you find yourself down at one of their store locations. Use that promo code and you're going to get 15% off. And that's just a partnership that we've created with 22 Fresh. Obviously wanting to support you at home, for the ones that support us here in our office. So thank you very much for listening to the podcast, as well as thank you very much to 22 Fresh for supporting us and the listeners throughout the 2022 NFL season. So continuing here out of the weekly recap into the weekly preview. So here we go.
"24 hours after the game, you got to move on."
Just right now, we're preparing for Cincinnati.
Teams on bye. We had no teams on bye week last week, and now we have the Arizona Cardinals and the Carolina Panthers. And thank God for Carolina, because they've burnt me on my pools picks with my buddies for too many weeks in a row. So now I don't have to worry about trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with Carolina here. But we're moving into week 13, and things are getting important. So these start sits, I remember last year we had some real spicy ones, especially coming down, and I think a couple of them were in playoffs, where it was like some big names we were telling you to sit, and like talking about sitting Saquon, and that paid off in a big way. Like these big names we were telling you, they're tough decisions, they're hard decisions, but sometimes they're the right decisions. So these are big weeks. Lots of people that are treating them like playoff games. Win, you're in; lose, you're out. So that's exactly how the playoffs work. So these are some important decisions, and we're hopefully going to make some of the right ones here for you. So we'll start things off with Armand's full stream ahead. Armand, who's a quarterback that you're willing to throw in the old lineup here, week 13?
All right. So for those shallower leagues, I'm giving you Trevor Lawrence versus Detroit. That's just a juicy one that I had to put in. And he's only owned in 62% of Yahoo leagues and 56.7 of sleeper leagues. And he is starting to look more like what he's supposed to be. He just had that clutch game, winning on the last play of the game type of thing, this weekend. And this game has the makings of a potential shootout, right? Detroit versus Jacksonville, two teams that can move the ball but can't really stop the ball very well. So, and DFS wise, I'd be getting down and dirty with this matchup all weekend long. And then deeper what?
Sorry, I was just gonna make a comment about that matchup, but I'll save it for my start of the week.
All right. And then in deeper leagues, you got to go with Kenny Pickett. He's still available and like over I think 70% of leagues or something like that. And he's playing Atlanta, which is a smash matchup for the young QB. It's a bit easier defense. So you got to hope that he does actually put up points, and that's looking at those super flex leagues or deep leagues that don't have a lot of guys available.
I like the Trevor Lawrence one there quite a bit. I think that's gonna be a fun one, and that's for Jacksonville. It's kind of a whole hum. I guess that division is like pretty much iced, I guess, with Indianapolis, or not Indianapolis, sorry, with Tennessee. But for Detroit, they're, as weird as it says to say, they're in the hunt here. So we'll see what ends up happening in that game. So I think that can be a fun one. I like that one a lot there, Armand. But before we get Zach to say his start of the week, holy crap, Zach, Garrett Wilson start of the week. You beat me to it there. And my goodness, was that a start of the week. I loved it lots. We talked about in the pod last week lots, and actually had a couple of guys message me, Garrett Wilson or this player, and I recommended Garrett Wilson on both of them. And the one guy just kept messaging me, "Oh, Garrett Wilson already? Oh yeah." And I was like, "Oh, doesn't it feel good to be right?" And then he just absolutely went nuclear, and it's like, "Oh yeah, Zach, listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about." So let's see if you can do it 2 weeks in a row here, Zach. Let's hear your start of the week this week.
Well, that one may have been a little risky, perhaps, especially what Wilson had been doing, but this one is a little on the nose, considering it is Ramondre Stevenson, starting running back for my favorite team, the New England Patriots. Over the past 9 weeks, not including the bye week, he has been a top 2 running back 2 or better every single week, and finishing as high as running back 2 on the week in week number 6. So this is somebody that is getting it done through the air and on the ground for the Patriots. He is essentially their entire offense. And today I found a tweet by Derek Brown over on the Bird app that said since week 7, he has 25.2% of the target share, which leads all running backs in the league, 54.6 reception yards per game, leading all running backs in the league. And he is second in receptions only to Austin Eckler. So this is a running back that can do it both through the air and on the ground. And I was worried the past couple of weeks that he'd be losing touches to Damian Harris, who is making his way back from an injury. But on Thursday, Harris tweaked his thigh. So it looks like for at least a little while, it will be the Stevenson show. And I will look for him to show off, even against a pretty stout Buffalo defense.
Yeah, the writing's on the wall for this one. I think he's been, and quote me if I'm not wrong here, Zach, he was one of your my guys this year too, correct?
Yes, he was.
So here you go, carrying the load for playoff championships here, and Zach can ride the high horse all the way to glory land. So let's keep that one in the old hopeful. Armand, who's your start of the week?
My start of the week is Brian Robinson, running back of the Washington Commanders. He is playing the New York Giants this week, which is a nice favorable matchup for them. And he's just coming off a big week. He's been a little bit up and down since he's kind of come back from his injury, but he is averaging a ton of carries every week. He hasn't been below 13 for 4 weeks now. His lowest carry total was 8. He's guaranteed to get a workload, I think, and he's running more violently. It looks like he's become more healthy. He might have came back a little early off the bat. You could tell he was a little tentative, but now he's running like an NFL running back.
I'm going to continue on the merry way here and talking about my start of the week. I like yours, Armand. I like it a lot. He had an unbelievable week, and Zach unfortunately should have started him last week. Just dig that dagger there a little bit deeper. But my start of the week is a little bit of a gutsy one, and a guy that's more than likely probably on your waiver wire for the most part. After the waiver wires clear and this episode drops, it's unlikely. He most likely will be picked up. But that's Zay Jones, wide receiver for Jacksonville Jaguars, and they're taking on Detroit. And if you were unaware, he put up 14 targets and he caught 11 of them for 145 yards against the Baltimore Ravens, which is a pretty stout defense. I know they're battled with a little bit of injuries right now, but I'm looking at the Detroit matchup, and we talked about that. I think this is going to be a really good football game. I think it's going to be pretty high scoring, and it doesn't help that Detroit, one of their best corners has been out for the last couple of weeks, and their defense is a little bit banged up too. So the secondary is one of the weaker points in the defense, not to mention that the whole defense hasn't been spectacular this season. And he's a guy that has either been on your bench for most of the season or has been sitting on the waiver wire. So a guy that you can pick up and put in your lineup in a favorable matchup. And kind of like Zach said, sometimes it's wishful thinking and you hope for the best, and it's a little bit sketchy. I think that's kind of where we're at with this one, but I think it's very likely that somebody in that receiving room is going to have a good week, and I'm going to lean towards the hot hand and a guy that got 14 targets last week, and that's Zay Jones. To the other side of the coin here, and the guys that we are sitting this upcoming week 13, we'll go back to the beginning with Zach.
So Chase Claypool is an interesting name, a mid-season trade from the Steelers to the Bears, and he is now presumably taking the mantle as wide receiver 1 in Chicago with Mooney out for the season. Claypool hasn't been lighting the world on fire since coming over to Chicago, but you would think maybe just volume would dictate that he would be a serviceable starter, considering a lot of teams are dealing with injuries as well as bye weeks this upcoming week. But I would caution anybody in starting Claypool, considering we still don't know who the quarterback is going to be for the Bears. It may be Fields, and if it is Fields, he'll be gutting it out with an injury, or it could be one of Trevor Siemian or Nathan Peterman at quarterback. And regardless of which player is at QB there for the Bears, they will be going against the Packers defense that ranks 4th in the league in opponent pass yards per game. So not a favorable matchup, to say the least. So if you have to, go ahead and start him and just hope for volume. But if you can find a better option, I would suggest doing that.
That's another wishful thinking player that just hasn't come to fruition. That might be a next year play and not so much to this year play. But Armand, where are you going with yours? I see it's the same game as where I'm going as well too.
Yeah, I am going with the Philadelphia Flyers running back 1, Miles Sanders, for my sit of the week. He just came off a huge week, and that's great and everything, but you can't let your emotions play too much. And he's had a decent season, but if you look at his points per game at each individual game, he has struggled a little bit with the tougher matchups. He's had his boom weeks, but he's also had weeks of like 5 points kind of thing. And Tennessee is known as a team that is very good at stopping the run, and they force you to throw the ball on them. And people have success throwing the ball against them, which means you got to imagine Philly's either going to be using Hurts' legs or his arm to win this matchup and not the legs of Miles Sanders.
You're so out on Miles Sanders. I don't even think you called him by the right name. I don't know. We're going to let that one go under the radar.
What did I call him?
I had a good little chuckle at that one, Armand. That was good.
What?
Call them the Philadelphia Flyers.
Oh, yeah. The
Sorry,
Philadelphia
Armand.
Eagles. Yeah, sorry.
I know it's been a long day for you, buddy. It's already got to hang in for about 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
I'm going to the same game as you, Armand, but I'm going the other side. And almost the exact same argument as what you had to say, but just flipping the coin. The Philadelphia Eagles have been superb against fantasy wide receivers. When you look at some of the games they've given up the most yardages, it's been against obscure teams like Indianapolis or Washington that haven't been able to move the ball that well through the air. But they're averaging 139 yards of receiving. That's among all wide receivers. And they're averaging under 3/4 of a touchdown per game. And the secondary of the Philadelphia Eagles is superb. And you look at so the player I'm talking about here is Treylon Burks. And if you look at his points he put up last week, he put up 15 fantasy points, 4 receptions, 70 yards. But then he also got that touchdown because of the fumble on the goal line that he recovered and scored, which was a very, very obscure play. If you haven't seen it, Derrick Henry catches a screen pass for, I think it was like 78 yards or something ridiculous like that, and then fumbles it on the 1 yard line. Treylon Burks falls on it and gets a touchdown. So Philadelphia is superb against the wide receivers, and a team that doesn't want to pass first, they want to run first. And so far, Philadelphia has been kind of weak in the run game. That's kind of where their soft spot's been the last couple of weeks, going all the way back to Washington exposing them a little bit. So I think they're going to continue to run the ball, obviously, as Tennessee trends to do. And Treylon Burks is going to be an auxiliary piece at best against a very, very, very good secondary of Philadelphia Eagles. So sit your Treylon Burks play, and I think that is where I will be going this upcoming week, because I do have actually Treylon in one league. So anything to add here, fellas, before we wrap this one up? I know we got Wellesley's wagers. He does send his regrets. He said just with the week, it's been a little bit hectic. We had a family supper for my wife's birthday last night, and work was a little bit crazy for him this week. So he's going to be sending those in. They'll be posted on Instagram tomorrow. So nothing on the pod today. But anything we want to add, fellas, before we wrap this bad boy up?
I can't believe we spoke for about an hour and only one mention of Brian Robinson's massive hat was made. That seems criminal.
And it's going viral too. Other guys are getting the big hat now too.
There's my buddy sent me a thing on Facebook. It's a mashup of Brian Robinson's face and Craig Robinson's skit from I Think You Should Leave with the hat.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Yeah, oh yeah. I know what you mean. That's outstanding. Anything for you, Armand? What do you have to get done to get to your fantasy playoffs for the staff league?
Oh, I'm sitting at 7th now, and they take 8 for playoffs. So I think I need to win at least one more, but I probably should win out. I think I got a shot. I made a gaffe and I traded away Stevenson, Zach. Traded him and Jamar Chase because Jamar Chase had been injured for so long, and you guys actually told me I should do it. So far it's paying off though, because Chase has been out yet, and but got Kirk and Devontae Smith and James Robinson, and nobody saw coming what happened to James Robinson with him being benched. And you know what? Such is life.
Hey, Michael Carter sprained ankle. Who knows?
Yeah. Fingers crossed. We'll see. I might be picking up Bam Knight, as they call him.
Yeah, that's one of those trades where you got to do it to try and stay alive.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Hey, doesn't matter how you get there as long as you make it, Armand?
Yeah, and that was the only reason I made that trade, is to stay alive. Otherwise, I would have been willing to take Jamar Chase to the playoffs. But
yeah, oh man, been there. I have made a couple trades to try and bolster my team in 2 different leagues, and all the players ended up on IR. So don't listen to me, I guess, is the moral of the story. So Regardless, that'll do it for episode number 70, everybody. Good luck this week in week number 13. If you have playoffs next week, we'll be doing a little bit of playoff primer, obviously, for you. But for most people, playoffs start week 15. So we've got 2 weeks to try and get you there, everybody. Good luck and hope for the best here, everybody. Enjoy a nice slate of football and take care. We'll talk soon.